All right, so trailer reaction for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This is talked about. They were
Color
doing a
below
prequel
text.
origin story of the warrior Furiosa, the one that was
Promise
played by
me you'll
Charlize
find your way
Theron
home.
and Mad Max Fury Road, which basically, I mean, she kind of took over that movie.
Yeah,
Basically,
it
I
was
mean,
basically her movie. Mad Max was just a side part of it.
yeah, she basically just took over that whole movie. That basically was her movie. So it makes sense why she would be getting a prequel film there with focus on the character. Anna Taylor Joy, who's a great actress, in many of stuff you see her in many of like Robert Eggers stuff. Everywhere. I think this is kind of like maybe her biggest movie she's ever done,
Mm.
like a franchise film. I think it's the first time she's ever done like a franchise.
hmm
So yeah. And then you also have Chris Hemsworth in this as well, and Chris Hemsworth playing Dementis. There. So is he the character that was the one that was not Joe, was he? Or is it somebody else?
It doesn't look like Joe, but then again,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So give me your
That's
thoughts.
Joe right
That's
there.
that's a younger Joe there. So he's playing a different character there. So what are your thoughts on the trailer there?
Um, I don't honestly. I was fine enough with the last Mad Max. Furiosa worked as a side part in the story, but I understood the easy arguments that people were making that she had way too much focus in the movie, and that it took away from Max as a character. And I think her getting a side story is fine enough. Will it be as good as Mad Max Fury Road? I don't know. But
Mm,
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't. What I saw in the original movie was fine enough for me. I didn't need to see a side story about her.
mm. Well,
Mhm.
I'm kind of excited for one. I mean, I think it's a gorgeous looking trailer
Mhm.
too. I mean, it's back to that Mad Max style there and the visual creativity there that we saw in Fury Road.
Mhm.
George Miller, he's back directing it. And even though that's always not a sign of success, we've seen directors come back to their
Sure.
franchises before. We've seen them fuck it up before, like Ridley Scott come back to the Alien franchise. So it's not always a sign like, oh yeah, it's gonna be just as good as it was before. But Mad Max Fury Road, it was like, oh shit, this is just as good as if not better than the other Mad Max movie. So he still got it. So that kind of gives me hope there that George Miller's back with doing it. And it seems like with this, I don't think it's just making it just to make it because we're just trying to cash in on Mad Max. We're just trying to make a sequel or prequel just to extend the universe. I think maybe it's just George Miller saying like, hey, I got a good idea for this movie. I got a good idea for this character to give her a backstory and do something. And also it being called a Mad Max saga. Um, I guess maybe that's just for branding purposes because I think that's what also George Miller said when he did Mad Max Fury Road is that he originally pitched it as a Furiosa movie to begin with, but then when he went to the studio about it, he was like, they want to, well, nobody's gonna watch it if it's just called Furiosa. You got to add Mad Max because that's the franchise, that's the title, that's what people know, it's the brand recognition there.
Yeah.
There if you do that, so so he originally just wanted to do about Furiosa to begin with. But yeah, so I think that kind of inspires me more than anything. It's just that, George Miller is back and doing it, and then the visual style and the action sequences there. And when Mad Max Fury Road came out, when did that come out? That came out what, 2014?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2014 that movie came. Oh no, 2015. And then it was I think it's one of the best action movies of the decade of, even 20 years maybe. I mean, of how amazing that movie looked and everything
The
about it.
visual effects along with the practical effects combining together is fantastic.
Yeah. Gorgeous looking. It was a gorgeous looking movie there.
I would have liked more Max in the movie, but I mean, to be fair, he was. I guess when hearing that story, he wasn't even going to be there in the first place. He just wanted to make a Fury. I would have watched the Furiosa movie way back when it was just Furiosa, back then. If they were just dropped the pretense, it's like from the world of Mad Max comes Furiosa, just like from the world of Conan comes Red Sonja. I'd have been all over that. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, I'll watch that. I'll watch Red Sonja.
Uh, so Yeah, when is let me look at the date here. When is this coming out? Let me check and see here. When if it gets 2024. It doesn't give a specific date, just says 2024.
It'll come out when it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready, when it's good and ready, it'll come out there. Yeah. So
I
2024.
would like to see before he dies one last great Mad Max movie that's about Max, but I mean, he did say he does want to do one more with Mad Max, but who?
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting up there, man. I don't know if that's ever gonna
Well, I
happen.
don't know. I mean, hey, direct. I mean, he could be living long, could still do it.
I hope so. I'd like to
What's
see
your
him. I'd like to see at least one more.
what's your favorite Mad Max movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. Aside from probably Fury Road, I have a soft spot for the first one.
First
I
one.
like the first Mad Max, but I think my favorite of them of the original trilogy is probably 2.
Yeah.
I like
Uh,
I like 2 quite a lot.
mm, and
3's not bad. The first half of 3 is good, and then the third half becomes a different movie, and I still enjoy it, but you have to go in knowing once he goes out into the desert, it becomes a different movie. Yeah, the Road Warrior is probably my of the original trilogy is probably my favorite, but I do enjoy the first Mad Max quite a bit.
yeah.
It's a rare kind of movie that we don't usually get where it's pre-apocalypse, but the apocalypse is kind of happening.
Mm, yeah. And yeah, this dude definitely is very much
Oh yeah,
into
he's buff.
BDSM. Yeah, BDSM here. Yeah. Is
Yeah, a
that
lot
how?
of the characters. He has a gimp too that gets killed.
Yeah. Is that what you would do? You get a gimp dressed in
Um,
BDS if it
I
was
guess
pre.
if I get because they kill all the women all the time for some reason. Like,
Mm.
I guess when there's nothing else, when there's nothing else to sate your desires. I guess, but
Like prison.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
guess so. I guess when you don't have another choice, but I mean, if I had my preference, I just wouldn't be murdering all the women.
oh. Yeah, I actually haven't seen the old school Mad Max movies in a while.
Oh my
Actually,
god, there's so many scenes where people almost died from stunts. It's so great.
people
That scene
almost
right
die.
there. This one, actually, right here. That one right there, where he flipped. He wasn't supposed to flip that way. He almost died right
Shit.
there. They kept that in front. They kept that because the stuntman he wasn't supposed to flip like that, but he hit it at just that angle, at the wrong angle, and so he went spinning, landed almost died.
Mm.
So there's a
Mm.
lot of stunts in the first and second one. Toe Cutter, the villain from the first movie, is actually Joe from Fury Road. The actor who played him later came back and played Joe.
Let's see. Sir Ganja NZ says I like all of them except Thunderdome. Yeah,
I got you.
I was gonna ask you about Thunder
Mhm.
because are people kind of mixed on Thunderdome? People are kind of mixed.
Yeah, so Thunderdome, like I said, Thunderdome, you kind of have to come in with two. Every time I've introduced Thunderdome on occasion, I always go, it's pretty good. I like Thunderdome. It has a lot of the post apocalypse vibes to it. And it works for the first half. And then once he wanders into the desert and ends up somewhere, that right here, right around here is when it's a completely different movie, and it kind of loses the plot a bit, where
Mm,
it stops really focusing on the first half, which was the better part. But I like the second half too. But I definitely understand why other people are completely frustrated. Although it does great some of the best one-liners. I always occasionally say friends of mine who have seen this movie, we always joke sometimes. 2 minutes or one man leaves.
oh, that's from this movie.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
for Thunder, 2 men enter, one man leaves.
Mm,
So many great lines. I love that she just has a person to play an instrument for her. The Tina Turner, yes, the one that had Tina Turner. She just has like somebody playing a saxophone in her lounge because hey, if I ruled this part of the area, why wouldn't I?
mm, yeah. Oh, that's what the I Still Believe guy, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, he was wasn't he like a drug addict and he turned into bodybuilding and then he became
yeah,
like a bodybuilder? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, good for
Yeah.
him, man.
Yeah. I mean, hey, usually people very addictive
Usually it's the
personality,
opposite.
they got to channel that into something. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
gotta do something with their
Religion,
life.
religion or fitness. Are
They
usually
find Jesus, whatever you can, man.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. We could put up a poll, do a retro review of this when
I'd be
before.
more than happy to watch a 4K restored version of the Mad Max trilogy or whatever. I've watched these movies quite a bit, so
Mm,
they
yeah.
they're solid enough. You just have to come in prepared. The third one, I understand why people don't like it, but it really is two different movies. Once it goes halfway through the movie, exactly halfway, it just becomes another movie, and you have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
The
And
movie
let's
could just stop after he like gets knocked out, and it could go on the screen and saying, "We are now directing you to part two of Beyond Thunderdome, different tone.
yeah.
Prepare you for the completely different tone we're gonna go with now."
Yeah. Isn't that the case with a lot of, all the Mad Max movies? Because I haven't seen these in a while, but
Mm,
isn't the most case where it's just like he kinda just stumbles on upon stuff? Like, he just kinda is just in the desert walking around, then all of a sudden he just comes into encountering something and it gets
not as
wrapped
much
up.
as you might think. In the first one, that one's more of a direct movie where he loses his family. He's a cop, and then he loses his family, and that pushes him over the edge, and it's a revenge movie. And actually, in fact, the first Mad Max actually inspired the movie Saw. Ironically enough,
Huh, okay.
inspired like one particular scene where he leaves a guy to either burn alive or saw off his own leg, and it's his choice. And the second one arguably was like the best action movie, at least car action movie that had been done forever, and still holds it to a degree. Um, and the third one has a lot of good action, good moments in it too. It's very different but samey in some ways. And then everyone saw Fury Road and were like, "Oh, Mad Max is back." And then there's that Furiosa girl in there too, and those women in there too,
Yeah,
and
the concubines, yeah,
concubines, yeah. And you're like, "Oh, okay." But it's such a damn good action movie. People are just happy to see another good Mad Max movie.
yeah. And, like,
Um,
everything just looks so lush, the
oh
the
yeah, yeah.
orange of the desert
The
and
blues, the oranges.
yeah, you got a dude who's rocking with his cock out, just
Oh
his
yeah.
whole job is just to be their personal, like, iPod, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
I
No, they sewed his eyes shut or whatever, and he just lives in that bungee setup, so he just can just play music while they're traveling around. And Tom Hardy did a pretty solid job as Max. There's just not a lot him to do. The first line in the movie is actually pretty solid, and then he doesn't really get to talk much after that,
Mm, yeah.
which I'm okay with to an extent because by the time this supposedly is taking place, it's it's like years and years after the event of the first movie.
Hold on. Oh, I forgot to let's see, I mentioned something because I interviewed a, stunt performer who actually worked on this
Oh,
movie.
nice.
And he actually talked about a scene he did. I wonder if this the scene because I showed it in the also he had a demo reel there. I think this was the
Nice.
scene there
Ooh,
where he had to like jump out of the moving vehicle there, and he said he hurt himself doing that.
yeah.
You all can watch the interview. Daniel him shoot as I did the interview with. He was a stunt performer in this film, by the way. And I think it was that scene where he said he hurt himself because he had to like tie his wrist and then he had to jump backwards there. But yeah. Yeah, but this was impressive. This was yeah, one of the shocked a lot of people, like, how amazing it was. It just was
Yeah, won a
great.
lot of rewards, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Made
I
a pretty
mean,
good video game too.
yeah, did you like the Mad Max video game?
I thought, bugs aside, because there's a lot of bugs in that game, a lot of bugs to prevent platinums from PlayStation and a few others. Bugs aside, I actually thought it was a pretty good game for a licensed property. I think it was pretty ambitious, honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, you can actually tell content was cut because when you go outside of bounds, the desert destroys you or starts tearing up your car. If you turn that off on the PC, that actually is rideable terrain. They meant it for to be that big actually. Originally, it was going to be much bigger and you had to deal with more things. They had a much more ambitious open world design and they were given a limited time, and so they were told you got to pull back on some things, and so that's what they did to solve that problem was they did as much as they could, and then they kind of clouded the rest of the other parts where
And
you took damage,
this
you went out. Mhm.
game came out around the same time as the movie too.
Yes, it did
Yeah, like, I think it
to,
was what,
to
2016?
capitalize on it.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's almost like a prequel to Fury Road.
Mm.
But I mean, Fury Road also has its own inconsistencies with the lore of Mad Max. But most fans kind of chalk it up to, well, it's mostly fairy tales now, and it doesn't really matter what the real lore is. I mean, it does, but it's like, well, he's kind of crazy, and the desert kind of the Australian desert kind of takes a lot out of you.
Had heat stroke. He's got heat
Yeah, heat
stroke.
stroke takes a lot out of you. You're just gonna have to have to live with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, overall, I thought the game was actually pretty good.
Well, and
Mad
then
Max is a solid property. I'd love to see it back. I'm glad to see it back a little bit, even if in a side story. But I would be happy as well if they also continue Mad Max and really end it. Oh man, how wild would that be if they brought Mel Gibson back?
mm,
I
yeah,
would love to see an older Mel Gibson playing an older Mad Max. That'd be so cool.
yeah. How old is Mel Gibson now? He's
He's
what,
he's, he's,
60s?
he's in his 60s.
Yeah. I mean, he's still crazy as hell. He can make it do
He's
it.
still crazy as hell. He could play Mad Max. I didn't have to put him in character.
Yeah. 67. He's 67 years old.
Yeah, get him in there. Come on, get him in
Yeah.
there. One last time as Mad Max, Max Rokotowski.
Yeah. I wonder if Furiosa will have, because a lot of people, I think one people's complaint about Mad Max Fury, not really a complaint, but just some people noticed was like the plot was basic as hell. They just go all the way one way, then realize,
Yes.
oh shit, we can't go here. Let's go all the way back. We
Yeah.
gotta go all the way back
Yeah,
to
her
where we
whole
were.
quest, like that's why I think it's funny about this whole movie of the side story. It's like, well, this is clearly the story you wanted to tell, and from the
Yeah.
very beginning, George, you wanted to tell this story with Max not involved because she wants to find her home. But the whole point of it is, oh, I've been looking for all these places and this, and it's like, oh yeah, you passed that terrible marsh. That's where it used to be. So yeah, your homeland has been gone for like forever.
Yeah, we talked about it. Sir Ganja. Yeah, we talked about the trailer. We gave our opinion on it there. If you we're gonna also upload this onto YouTube as well for the full discussion there. But yeah, we talked about this trailer there. We liked it. Enjoyed it very much. Again, very much that George Miller style there from the Mad Max Fury Road there, like the lush kind of colors there that you see. I'm glad to see Chris Hemsworth in something other than Thor. Even
Yes.
though when he's got the beard, you can't help but think of Thor, even though he's got that big ass beard. But um,
I mean, let's be fair. Even in the Thor movies, they haven't really allowed him to be Thor since Infinity War.
so yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, like I said, I think George, I got faith in George Miller, and it also helps that these movies are like the last one was 8 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like they're just stacking these on top of each other. It's been a while since we've seen Mad Max. So it's like that also helps it. Like there's like we don't get one every year. The shit ain't Star Wars. We ain't getting some shit every year. About. Now if you start doing Mad Max, the TV show, Mad Max, the serial, Mad Max, all that other shit, then that's a problem. But just a movie every 8, 10 years or something like that. It's like, oh, okay, well, ooh, a treat, Mad Max again. That's cool. So yeah. Yeah, yeah. All right. So yeah.